So today we're going to show you, it's a rainy day, we're going to work in the shop today, and we're going to show you how to make a solid oak chair. This is my design. I've made a table, and then I made 4 chairs to go with a table. Well, then I made another table, and I don't have any more chairs, so now I'm making 4 more chairs to go with my other table. But they're very heavy, they're very solid, and they're really a good chair. So this is how we make them. We start off with the pattern of the arch back. We cut these all out on a bandsaw, and we lay our lumber out, so we cut the long pieces first. It takes 2 of these to make a leg. Once you get 2 of them cut, glue them together, clamp them together, and have them ready to be sanded later. Once you get them all laid out, sawed out, what you end up with is a pair of them like this right here. So your right side, left side. The way we do this is we lay them side by side. We take our spindles that go between the 2 backs, and we lay them right down on top of here. We mark the 2 outside edges, which is the 2 outside marks. You mark the 2 inside marks is where your pins are going to go. And you square that line on every one of these all the way across. You need to label them A, B, C, D, so that your spindles will all be labeled, so you know exactly which one goes in what position. So this is G, B, C, F, so they all go in their corresponding position as to where you drill the holes. Everything's held together with wooden pins and glue. Once we get them all laid out and we get them all drilled, then we go over to the router table and we route this back edge, because once that edge is behind your work, you can't route it anymore. So you want a nice smooth edge so when you pick up your chair it's nice and round. We use a 1/4 inch round router bit on all of them. So once you get it all laid out, you get all your holes drilled, and you can see that if you take a square and you square every one of these, like here C, F, D, E, B, G, once you lay the square across here and you square all these up, they're in a perfect place. We use a drill guide. It's called a Stanley number 59. And this drill guide has got a little line on it. It's really hard to see. It's really small. It's right here. And you line up that mark with the mark that you put on your wood. So when you set it on there, it goes right on there and it lines up. You line up this mark with this mark. You make sure it's square. You drill your hole. You got to be kind of careful with your drill so that when you drill your hole, you don't go all the way through your work. So they put a stop on here for you that you can use. I usually set it 1/4 inch higher than what I want, so when I drill my hole, I come down in here within 1/4 inch and I stop. That way you don't poke a hole through the other side of your work. Heaven knows when that happens, that's not pretty. So once you get them all laid out and you get all your holes drilled, you get your spindles all routed. So here's all 5 of them that we're going to put in here right now. And you can see that the backs of them have already been routed. The fronts of them are labeled where they go. And we know which one goes in which position. So if you missed by just a little bit, that you know it's going to fit. So all of these are going to go into this back we're going to put this one together real quick. We saved you the aggravation of showing you how to drill all these holes. That's a lot of work drilling all these holes. Our right around 70 pins in each chair. So I'll get a couple of clamps out here, and I'm going to show you how we glue it and pin it. These are our 1.5 3/8 fluted. They make a spiral cut and they make a fluted. I like the fluted. Personal preference. We're going to show you how we get this thing glued up. We're going to clamp it up, and then we've got one already made here that we're going to show you when we get done with it, because we're making 4 chairs. So let me show you how this works real quick. Start out with either one you want to start with. You remember that when you put glue on a piece of wood and the glue sticks to it, if you're going to put it someplace where there's going to be stain, you want to make sure that you don't get excessive amount of glue, because if you get an excessive amount of glue, that stain is not going to stick to your wood when you get done trying to finish it. So you want to try to be a little bit careful with putting in too much glue, have the glue running all over the place, because that's not a good thing when that happens. So I like to take my pins and I just tap them in about halfway. It takes a lot of time to drill all these holes, but I'm telling you, when you get done with it, you'll appreciate it more than anybody, because it's just a beautiful chair, and it's solid, it's heavy. You go to pick it up, and really a good chair. We was going to go outside and work today, but it's raining outside, so today's a good day to work in the shop. Once you get your pins in there, what I like to do is I come back and I put a little dabble of glue on top of each one of these pins, like so. That way, when you go to dry the spindle on, you got a really good joint. So now we got to figure out which one's which here. So that's an H. So now we got to go down through here and we got to find the H. Here's the H. Set it on there, line up your pins. The next one is a G. So we got to find the G. Here's the G. Next one's an F. Put the F on. Next one is an E. Got to put the E on. And then the last one is a J. Now, we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Not get too carried away with the glue. Make sure some falls down in the pinholes, because you want them pins to be good and strong too. Get them all laid out in there. I bought 1,000 pins and just about to the point where I'm needing more pins. They don't last very long, especially just like the back of this chair right here. There's 20 pins in just this one piece. And then the seat bottom, I'll show you that too. It's going to have, I think there's 9 or 10 pins in the seat bottom. It just takes a lot of pins, but really, really strong. When you get all said and done with it, it's a really strong chair. The next part, once we get this in, is putting that piece on. That gets a little bit tricky. You got to kind of have a little bit of finesse getting everything the way you want it, of course. Now we're going to go back and we're going to put some glue back on the top of each one of these pins, so when they slide into the females there, they get themselves glued in there really, really good. Like that. Now this is the part that gets just a little bit on the interesting side. I like to start out by maybe starting on one end down here and getting at least one of them kind of started in there, and then try to get the second one. Like that. And I dropped my hammer. Get another one. Now remember, you don't want all that glue to get all over your work. So if you see any excess starting to try to run off or that, you want to get that wiped off of there. You don't want to have glue falling all over everything. Now once you get that done, now we're going to start clamping this up. Get my clamps here. And I try to clamp it someplace where you're not going to have to wipe the glue off. So stay away from your spindles, because that's where your glue is going to come oozing out, and you want to get that stuff wiped off of there. So stay away from your joints. I like to stay like right in the middle of them like that, so that when that glue starts oozing out of those joints, that it doesn't get all over your work. It's just going to save you time down the road, that you don't have so much sanding to do and get all this glue cleaned off, because there's nothing fun about that. So start pulling them down evenly, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. What makes a good joint is pressure. And the more pressure you got on them clamps, that glue joint, after it heals up, man, it's tough. So I got them babies glued down and tightened down pretty tight. Now I'm going to go back with my rag. I'm going to wipe off all that excess glue without trying to smear it all over everything. Paper towels are wonderful because they soak it right up. You don't end up with a big mess. Wipe all that excess glue out of there. Just save you time in the long run when it comes time to sand it all, especially when you get in a little fine corner like that. That's hard to get in there and sand that without making a mess of things. All right. So that is our seat back. You can see its seat goes out this way. You see where it's all put together. I get this out of the way. Set it over here somewhere. Once you get it unclamped, it'll look like this. So this is the routed edge that I was showing you. See, you can't get a router in here and route this now because this is in the way. That's why you want to get these routed on the back side before you put them in the chair. Now we're going to show you the front legs of the chair. They're done exactly the same way. We've laid them out, we've marked our spindles, we routed them on the back side on one side. This has already been sanded. We cut this top at 7 degrees so that the seat leans 7 degrees towards the back of the chair. Makes it real comfortable. Not too much to them. Exact same thing. 2 pins, 2 pins, 2 pins, 2 pins. Then we have to make the seat bottom. So these I've already laid out. I laid them all out on the table. And I labeled them A, B, C, D, so that everybody knows exactly what position they go in. Once you get them laid out, then you want to take a square, and every place that they join, you want to square a line across them. Here's the last one right here. You want to square a line across all these. 1, 2, 3 different lines. Then you use your drill guide and you line it up perfect, and you drill all these holes. So that each time this board goes together, there's 3 pins here, 3 pins here, 3 pins here. Always make them bigger than what you're going to use. So that you can always cut them to fit. Once you get them all down, this is one I got clamped up here. See? You can see the excess glue. I've tried to wipe that off of there already, but you know, this all gets sanded anyhow, but still, if you can help keep from getting glue on things, it's going to save you in the long run as to, you know, all the extra sanding that you don't have to do. I leave everything clamped up. I usually clamp stuff up for 24 hours. Just, you don't have to. I just do. I'm old school. These are old school chairs, and I just clamp stuff up, and I keep it clamped up for 24 hours. The next day I'll come back and unclamp stuff, take it out, set it off to the side. I might have 3 or 4 things that I need to clamp up. So it doesn't hurt to leave them clamped for a long time. Ain't gonna hurt a thing. Once you get the legs done, the seats done, the front legs, the back legs, it's really pretty simple as to how it assembles. So top, and you'll see there's 4 wooden plugs right here. So I set my seat on here, I glue it, I run 4 screws in here. Once I get it screwed down, I make sure my hole is deep enough to absorb a little oak plug. And you can buy these little oak plugs anywhere. They're tapered. They fit perfect in the hole. Just little bitty oak plugs that go in here and plug up so that you don't see the screw. It actually looks like somebody put a wooden pin in there. So there's 4 across the back. If you look at the front, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 down through the seat. Holds the seat down. There's glue. Put glue all around this when you set the seat on. Clamp it down good. Run your screws in there. Get it all clamped up. These things will stick out a little bit. That's not a problem. They'll sand right off. A little orbital sander will sand them right off so that they're flush. Makes a real nice job when you're all said and done. The seat back and the front, once you get the back assembled, you can take your router. What I do is I take my router and I go all the way around each one of these, top, bottom, sides. Route this whole piece before you set it on the base or build the seat bottom. It just makes it a lot easier to pay attention to when you route something and get it done so that you don't have to go back later and try to, oh, I forgot to route that. Now what am I going to do? That happens a lot. If you're not, you got to stay on top of your game so you don't get behind. All of these spindles, this is 36 inches from the top of the chair to the bottom of the chair. All of these spindles that go across here are 12 inches. This is 12, 12, 12, 12, 12. All the spindles on the front of the chair, across here and across here, 12 inches. The two pieces here, I've changed my design a little bit. This one stayed 2 inches, but this one was actually 1.5 inches, which I changed it now to 2 inches also. And they're 12 3/4 inches long. And then what I did was on this end, remember this leg right here is cut at 7 degrees. So this piece right here is cut at 7 degrees. So it lays flush, and where it tails into this piece here, you'll mark that and cut that later. This one here is at 90 degrees, and where it tails into this one is about 7 degrees with the slope of the leg. Actually, the chair I just did, this one was 7, this one was 4, this one was a 90, and this was 7, and it worked out perfect. When you go to put these pieces in, you're 2 inches above this bottom rung, which means that both ends of this you can drill with the drill guide. These up here, you can't do that. You can lay them out and mark them on each end, and you can drill the spindle, but you can't drill the leg because this back is in the way. So you have to freehand drill these 4 holes, and you just really have to be careful when you do that to make sure that that hole is in exactly the right place. If you miss, it's not going to go together. You have to make sure that you have it in exactly the right place. There's not much forgiveness to these pins. They fit tight. So if that hole doesn't line up, they're not going to want to go in the right place. So I'm going to show you the one that I made yesterday. This is the one I made yesterday. And you can see from that other chair that now this is a full 2 inches instead of being 1.5 inches. These stayed the same. This one here I changed to a 1.5 inches. I also changed I put 4 in here, screws and plugs. I actually put 2 here, and then I did the same on the back side. I put 4 in the back side, all glued, all screwed. I like to build them on the table saw because that table saw is perfectly square, so there's no rock. If you have a little bit of rock in your chair, you can take a sander and find out which one needs a little bit of sanding and get it knocked off just enough where it sits on that table saw nice and flat. Once it's all said and done, once it's all stained and everything, then I come back and I glue these big heavy felt pads on all 4 of them. They slide around on a hardwood floor really nice, and when you go to pick them up, they don't do that. They slide like you're standing on a piece of glass. Once you get them all put together and sanded, sand off all the pencil marks. Make sure that they're all even, sand them so they're even, so that when we route this, that we get a real nice route job. I'm going to route this one real quick. Won't take me just a minute, but You can see it makes a pretty nice job all the way around. Every one of these, all the way around the inside, the outside, back. So now we're going to get ready to lay this thing out and put on our spindles that connect the two together. So we get a top leg, a back leg, and a front leg. Remember, we had angle cut on this, so there's seat slopes to the back. We're going to square those up like that. I cut those pieces on a cutoff saw that go in between there, top and bottom. These are the tops, these are the bottoms. So we need 2 of each. Get our tape measure and our pencil, we're going to lay them out where they go. Remember, it was 2 inches above. 2 inches above this right here. So that would be 8. 8. What I like to do is just take, this is my 90-degree end. I'm just going to take that and I'm going to set that right there on top of that mark. And I'm going to mark both ends of it. And then I'm going to mark the middle where the 2 pins go. So, you see how I laid it out there and how I marked it. So both of them will be exactly the same. We're going to call this one A, and we're going to put an A right here. So when we drill this, we know that this will be the A joint. The one on the other side is going to be the same thing, but it's going to be the B joint. So we're going to label it B on both pieces. We're going to mark out our board. We're going to put 2 marks for our 2 pins. So here's our B. Then we're going to do the same thing with where they tie into the chair at. But first what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it out and take a look and see with the square line. I'm going to square it right here on my table saw. Square my leg right on my table saw. Right there like that. I'm going to set my spindle in there where it goes. I get this leg here square too. Now the top one, where it goes, if you remember, we had the slope on one end and a very little slope on the other end, so we're going to lay it out. And it should come out to be 3/8 of an inch below this rung. So when our chair, or when our base sits on here, which would be the same thickness as this, that we have 1/4 of an inch of this rung sticking up above the chair. So that's pretty much how we get it laid out. Now we got to go back to drilling holes. So once I get all the holes drilled in it, I'll show you the next part. So I saved you all the aggravation of watching me drill holes. So here's all of our spindles. The holes are all drilled, routed on all 4 sides. Here's our corresponding holes with the front of the chair. Corresponding holes with the back of the chair. So now we're going to glue them and pin them. So, and if we're right, everything will fit. If we're wrong, we're going to have problems. Hopefully not. You don't want to have problems when you get down to this stage of the game, that's for sure. We get our pins and start driving them in there. Remember, these top 4, I had to freehand drill those because there's no way that you can get the drill guide in there. These bottom ones you can use a drill guide on all 4 sides, but you can't use it on the top ones. The top ones, you're just in the blind. You just got to be careful what you're doing. Now we're going to put a little glue on top of all these pins. That way they get a good bite. If we get excessive glue, we'll wipe it off with a paper towel. Okay, now we got to find out which one goes where. So this is a F, an H, here's the F right here. Get them lined up. Tap him on there. The next one is a square, goes right here. The next one is a B. It goes right here. And the last one is a G. There's the G right there. Now we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to glue these up. Put pins in. They're time consuming, but I'll tell you what, when you get done with them, you'll appreciate them there. You just go to move one around and pick it up and you'll understand there. It's a very substantial chair. Put a little bit of glue on top of those pins. Now comes the fun part, trying to get this all started on here at the same time. So, best thing to do is just kind of get into one corner down here if you can. Once you get it to that point, we'll stand it up and we'll get a clamp on it. Try to pull your clamps up evenly. Get a paper towel and wipe off that excess glue. Next time we'll show you how to cut the seat and put the seat on. So today we're going to finish this chair. We're going to put the seat bottom in it. I just took it out of clamps. I pre-made my seat bottom and I pre-drilled it. And I pre-drill it with a Craig jig drill bit. So I get a pilot hole. And the pilot hole gives you enough room for the screw to go in, and then the wooden plug to sit on the top to hide the screw. As you remember, this was 7-degree angle going to the back of the chair. So what I've done was I sanded a 7-degree angle in the back of this chair, so when it fits up against it, it doesn't have a big gap at one end, and you know, it fits nice and snug and nice and tight. So I've made the thing fit really good. What we're going to do now is we're going to glue the entire chair, the back, front, everything. And we're going to screw the back on first, and we're going to hold it square with the back, because the legs, as you clamp them together, they wander around from left to right and up and down. Don't worry about it. Get the back of the chair screwed in first. Once the back of the chair is screwed in, then you can take and put a clamp on the front, move the legs a little bit one way or another to make them square, and then go ahead and put your screws in. So right now we're going to glue this up and put the screws in the back of the chair. The Craig jig screws that I'm using are 1.5 inches. And the reason I like them is because they don't split. You know, this is red oak. They won't split the wood. If it does, something terrible bad happened, because usually they won't split the wood at all. Set that down on there nice and tidy like that. Turn it around here. Make sure my two outside edges are square. I'll hold that chair back to me and I'll sink the screws in. 4 screw holes in the back. They are a good screw. I really do like them. They're a little pricey, but I really do like them. Alright, so now that we got the screws in the back, we can take a look at the front and see how far out of whack it is. So you see the chairs, the tops this way, 1/8 of an inch or 1/16 of an inch. So see how you can pull that. It doesn't take much to get it back square. As long as you can get her good and square, we'll go ahead and sink the screws in the top. I got 6 screws in the top. I've never broke one of these screws either. I don't know what it would take to break one. I have stripped the heads out, but these are a square drive. I do like the square drive a lot better than a Phillips screw, because a Phillips screw, you know, they start trying to ratchet. These square drives in Torex, they hang in there. They're tough. I like them. Pretty good screws. We got one more to go here and we're done with that. Okay. Now what we'll do is we'll go back to our wooden plugs and we'll glue our wooden plugs in. We'll set them down in all these holes, tap them down flush with the top. We have 4 in the back, across the back here. We'll put the plugs in there, put them all down. Get my little hammer out here. Put a little dabble of glue on them. Set them in the hole and give them a tap. If you really get particular, you can buy these plugs with the grain going one way. You can buy them with a long grain or an end grain. Like these here have a long grain to them. You can take and lay the grain the same way that the grain in the chair's going. So when you put them in there, you have a hard time seeing where they're at. If you take your time and you really do a good job putting them in there, and you line that grain up really nice, and you put them in there like that, you'll find out that you won't even be able to hardly see them in there. Remember, you don't want to knock them past flush. Just want to get them in there to where they're flush. Makes for a nice, very nice job, really. I still have to put the router on the top edge of this. Once I get the plugs all in it, I'll route the top edge of this and the front bottom edge, and then I'll start sanding on it, get it nice and smooth. Makes for a pretty job. So there's your plugs. I'll get a paper towel and wipe off that excess glue. Save me a little bit of sanding later on. Get rid of that excess glue off of there. Now I got to put 4 in the back. We'll be done putting the plugs in. The chair is probably one of the more time-consuming pieces that you can build. Whether you build square leg chairs or round leg chairs, they take a lot of time and a lot of patience. But they're pretty rewarding when you get them all done. I like everybody to, what I'm really trying to do here is I'm trying to get everybody to use their hands and build things. And man, if you can do that, you will enjoy your life so much more. Actually, you get such good gratification of building something. You know, whether we're building something out of wood, or we're building something out of steel, or we're making an attachment for a bobcat, or we're making something off the wall for somebody, I really enjoy doing every bit of it. I'd like everybody out there to do the same thing. That's kind of the reason I'm doing this, is to get people to, try to get people to do things. There you see that the plugs are in the back of the chair. And you'll see this little edge right here. So we're going to route this little edge. We're going to route this little corner. We're going to route the bottom of this so that it matches everything else and everything is smooth. After that, the only thing left is get your arborable sander and go all over it and sand everything real nice and pretty before you put your stain on, whatever color stain you want. Might have a couple little spots to put a little bit of wood putty and clean up, sand a little bevel on these, but when it's all said and done, I think you'll be very pleased with the chairs that you build, especially when you build them yourself. Hit that subscribe button and watch our other videos that we make with metalworking and so on. You'll find out that we make all kinds of things up here. So thanks for watching.